Hello, I'm Anne Kay. I'm the Court Manager at South Sefton Magistrates Court. The purpose of this DVD today is to give you an insight into what to expect if you come to South Sefton Magistrates Court and appear as a witness.
My role is to actually manage the witness service. The witness service is actually run by volunteers who look after victims and witnesses when they come to court.
I'm an usher attendant. Generally, it's the role is to look after both, one, the magistrates, two, the people who come into court and make them feel at ease when they come in. The defendants, many haven't been here for a long time, or have never been here.
Things have improved for witnesses tremendously over recent years following the implementation of the Victims Code of Practice and more recently the Witness Charter.
In the majority of cases, when you speak to a victim or a witness, they say, well, I've seen it on the telly. You know, and we then explain to them, well, television is entertainment and this is the real world. And when they actually see a courtroom and they actually see the process when we give it to them or explain it to them, they then realise that it is totally different and it isn't as frightening as people think it is.
This is where the magistrates will sit while they're hearing the trial. There will be 3 magistrates on the day. The chairman will sit in the middle and he will be accompanied by 2 wingers. If the trial is to be conducted by a district judge, he will sit on his own in the middle seat. This is where the legal advisor will sit. The legal advisor will be present in the courtroom to advise the magistrates on legal issues. This is where the prosecutor will sit. The prosecutor will present the facts of the case to the magistrate on behalf of the Crown Prosecution Service. This is where the defence solicitor will sit. During the trial, the defence solicitor will put forward the case on behalf of the defendant. And over here is where the witness will stand to give evidence in open court. Once the witness has taken the stand, they will be sworn in, and it is up to that individual witness and their religion as to how they wish to take the oath. This is what is often referred to as the dock, and this is where the defendant will be during the course of the trial.
A legal advisor's role is effectively to come into court and advise magistrates. Magistrates are volunteers, they're not legally qualified or legally trained. So when people come into court and if a defendant attends or if a victim or witness comes to give evidence, the magistrates make the decision on fact. What I have to do is advise magistrates on any issues of law or practice that arise throughout either a trial or a hearing.
My job is to present the case on behalf of the defendant, my client, and in doing that I will ask the witnesses questions to test their evidence. And I will also put to the witnesses my client's version of events so that the court can find out what the witness has to say about that.
I'm a senior Crown Prosecutor with Merseyside Crown Prosecution Service. Here at court, I take on the role of prosecuting cases, which means I present those cases to the magistrates who are hearing the case, tell them all about what has gone on so they know what has happened, what the defendant is alleged to have done or has done if he's pleaded guilty, so that they can make a proper decision about how the case should be dealt with from there and what decisions they can make about how to deal with him. I also conduct trials here, which obviously involves cross-examining witnesses and allowing the evidence to come out so the magistrates can hear a little bit more about the cases that have happened, the case that's before them.
The role is, as a bench of 3, a chairperson and 2 wingers, we hear the cases and we make findings on the facts of those cases.
Well, I think vulnerable witnesses would expect to be brought in through a separate entrance so they don't have to cross the main court landing, that they've got safe and secure facilities so that they do feel safe and secure when they come and give evidence, that the place is clean and well maintained. We are particularly lucky at South Sefton because we also have ensuite toilet facilities in the witness suite so that the witnesses, once they're actually in the witness suite, don't have to leave that. and don't have to go anywhere else where they might feel vulnerable. The witness suite at South Sefton is accessed from a separate entrance, so any vulnerable or intimidated witness would never need to meet any member of the public. They're brought in through the separate entrance, they're brought through a different route, and they are taken to the witness suite where they remain until they're actually asked to give evidence in court. If I knew someone who was coming to court to be a witness, the advice that I would give to them is to go and have a look at the courtroom, speak to the people actually in the court who will be looking after them when they are at court, have a look at the facilities that are available, familiarise themselves with the surroundings so that when they actually appear in court they feel more comfortable because they've seen it previously. They've spoken to people, they know what the procedures are, they know what's going to be expected of them, and they will know what to expect from the court.
Victims and witnesses, when they come to court, a lot of people have never been to the court system before. We offer a service where we can actually invite a victim or a witness prior to the trial date to come and have a look at a courtroom, so they can actually see on the day of trial what they're actually going to face. Once they've actually come in and had a look at the courtroom, then they're prepared then for the day of trial. We actually offer a service where our victims and witnesses can actually come in a separate entrance. So they don't actually come in the main door. They're met and they're greeted by either myself or one of my volunteers, and from there we take over and we basically liaise between our victim and witness and the courtroom. The victims and witnesses are actually in a separate area, so they're actually sat in more of a comfy room really. We've got the TV there, we've even got a Wii that they can actually use. We're there also to make them tea and coffee. They don't have to go out of that room at all until the actual time of them going in to give evidence at the court. The prosecutor will actually come in and speak to them and give them their statement, and the usher will also come in and introduce themselves as well, and we're there with them until they actually go into the courtroom. And should they require us, because they might be nervous or whatever, to come into the courtroom with them so that there's a familiar face in the courtroom, then we can do that as well.
If a special measures application is made, if a witness is vulnerable or intimidated, they don't have to actually come into the courtroom to give evidence. They can give it over a video link, or they can give it in the courtroom behind screens, so that they don't actually have to see the defendant. They are actually asked questions from the court via a video link, so they sit in a separate room in front of a television screen and they give their evidence from that room.
As the witness service, we can't actually say to a victim or a witness that they can have these services. They have to be applied for by the Crown Prosecution Service to the magistrates that are sitting before a trial commences. And it's up to a magistrate or a district judge to actually approve that. But the facilities for special measures that we do provide can be a TV link, which is where a victim or a witness will actually go into a separate room and speak to the prosecutor, the defence, through a TV, and the only person that they will actually see is the person that is talking to them. And they won't have any access to the court at all, and they won't see the court, and they don't actually come out onto the main landing where everybody else is as well. And then once that's done, then they'll go back into the witness suite. The other provision that they can provide is screens, where they're actually screened off, albeit they come into the actual courtroom. The only people that they will see in the courtroom if they're screened off is the magistrate or the district judge, the prosecutor and the defence solicitor. They don't see anybody else. And then once they've given their evidence, they then go out of the courtroom, the screens are then removed, and the trial is as per normal.
We are professionally trained, and there are certain rules which we abide by. Perhaps the best way I can illustrate it is that it isn't as it comes over on television sometimes, because on television it over-dramatises what happens in court. It's actually far more relaxed in an ordinary courtroom. And as I've said, we are bound by certain rules of the court. We're courteous, we're trained to be courteous, and we're trained to do our job professionally.
It sounds scary, and I know people get nervous about it, but really it's just a process of answering questions and telling the court what happened in their own words. Prosecution go first and allow the witness to basically tell the court what happened, what they saw, how events played out on this particular day or night that they witnessed, whatever it was they witnessed. And then they get cross-examined, and the defence then asks them a series of questions, which is putting the defendant's version of events to them. And I suppose that can be a little bit scary because it's challenging your account, and I suppose that's the bit that makes most witnesses nervous. But we find that if witnesses stay honest, answer the questions openly, honestly, they come out of it much better than they thought they ever might.
Support is with them all the time, and I think we have really achieved the best we can for the witnesses.
The dignity of the court has to be maintained at all times because we're here, we act on behalf of the Queen. We're here to ensure that justice is done, but we're also here to ensure that justice is done fairly and equitably to all parties.
The witness service in the Magistrates' Courts has only been going for 10 years, and before that they actually had to sit in the same seating area as a defendant and their family and supporters, which of course was quite intimidating. And this is when we found that victims and witnesses didn't want to come to the courtroom for obvious reasons. Once the witness service came into place, we have the facility. They don't have to come in the same entrance as the defendant. They sit in a separate area, so they're more relaxed even then. Our volunteers or myself that look after them talk about anything and everything other than the trial to try and relax them and what have you. If they've got any questions to ask, then we will try and answer them for them. If we can't answer them, then we will speak to a prosecutor or we will speak to an usher, so that everything that they're bothered about with a trial is answered before they actually go in. And yes, they will be nervous going into a trial. Anybody is nervous going into a trial, but they're a lot more relaxed and also more informed of what's going on.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this DVD. I hope it's given you an insight into what goes on behind the scenes to make a witness's experience when they come to court more comfortable.